I'm Brian Warshaw,
And I'm Jay Yaz.
and this is Comics Now. Welcome to Comics Now. I'm Brian Warshaw, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Jay Yaz. Jay, how's it going tonight?
It is going very well, Brian. I'm glad to be back in the swing of things here.
Yes, me too. It feels like it's been longer than the 2 weeks or so that it's been, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it is nice to be back, and both because it's easier to ease back in and because there are some odds and ends. We're going to mix things up a little bit tonight with the format, and it's going to be more like a variety show without all the special guests and people juggling fruit. So
do I need to tell the people juggling fruit that we're not in need of their services tonight?
Oh, they're
Because
fired.
I already paid for that, Brian. Come on.
See if you can get a refund, and if
Guys,
not, yeah.
they're really disappointed, but whatever. Life goes on.
So now that the jugglers are gone, and presumably the fruit with them, why don't you tell us what's going on in news, Jay?
So, before we get into the news, I did want to mention that I went to FanExpo Dallas this past weekend. It leads into some of the news, don't worry. But no, it's always fun just to talk about the conventions we go to and everything that we did. I had a good time. I was pretty tired after the second day and almost considered not going yesterday, but I'm really glad that I did for something I'll get to in a few minutes here. On a Friday night, I went to a 80 Years of Batman celebration panel with Doug Mahnke, Peter Tomasi, Pat Gleason, and James Tynion IV. It was just fun listening to them talk about Batman and, all sorts of stuff. And after that, I wandered the show floor for a little bit and didn't end up getting much in the way of merchandise Friday night. Saturday, I went to a couple of panels. I sat in on the I Love That Movie podcast panel. They had a live recording where they discussed Big Trouble in Little China. That was a lot of fun, and I will actually be on that episode as well because they had a Q&A afterward, and somebody mentioned that John Carpenter never ever wants to return to remake or reboot Big Trouble in Little China because I guess he just had such a bad experience with it flopping and the studio interfering and everything. He doesn't want to do that. But I went up and mentioned that Boom Studios has released a couple of Big Trouble in Little China comics, one of which was written by John Carpenter. So unless they cut my audio out there, I'll be on that show.
Very nice.
What else did I do on Saturday? Saturday, just a lot of wandering around the floor. I got Patrick Gleason and Doug Mahnke to sign my Batman and Robin omnibus.
Oh, very nice.
Which, Peter Tomasi had signed that last year when I saw him at FanExpo. So it was nice to. I wanted to get Gleason's, and then I was walking around a little bit, and I was like, wait a minute, Mahnke's here, and he illustrated some of those issues too. So I went over and got him to sign it. I got John Byrne to autograph a copy of The Man of Steel that I have.
Very, very nice.
He, I guess, never does conventions. So this was a huge get for FanExpo. So that was pretty cool. They actually handed out business cards about how to make it a pleasant experience with John Byrne. No posed photographs, only 10 items per person or family per day. Make sure you have everything out and ready for him to sign. He only uses a black marker. So, he's pretty particular, but, it's John Byrne. So, I guess you're just going to roll with it. But, no, it was pretty cool. Got him to sign that and picked up a paperback copy of Elliot S. McGann's Superman Miracle Monday, which is an old novel that was kind of a tie-in to Superman the movie, but not really, because they couldn't actually write a novelization of it. I think that was part of Mario Puzo, who wrote a treatment of the script for Superman the movie. I think he had, like, in his contract the rights to do the novelization of the screenplay if he wanted to. So they didn't write one for the movie. So they wrote a couple of other, like, tie-in comics that capitalized on the movie and everything.
I had no idea that Puzo was involved in a treatment of the script for that. Would I be right then to assume, knowing that now, that it can't be a coincidence that Marlon Brando and Puzo were involved on that project?
You know, I don't think it's a coincidence. That may have been part of maybe what got them to be able to get Brando on there. And I'm not sure how much of the final script was Puzo. I know that there's a lot of stuff in there that was still him, but I'm not sure what was Puzo and then what was rewrites and everything. But yeah. I mean, I don't doubt that there's some sort of connection there at all between the two. But yeah, I've heard this is Miracle Monday is one of the best Superman stories in any medium ever, and it was like $5 for like a little paperback book. So I got that, and Sunday, like I said, I was exhausted from Friday and Saturday. And just considered not going just because I was so tired, and I was kind of disappointed because I was looking around for specific things from vendors that none of the vendors had. So, I mean, I went in with too much expectation of trying to find something specific versus just finding some hidden treasures, like which you could consider the Superman book. And then I also got a little paperback book of of Batman comics that were, reprinted in black and white, but like 2 panels a page, like they would release, for like, 20 cents on like a drugstore rack and everything. They had one of those too, and I thought that was just kind of a cool little thing to pick up. So those are some nice hidden treasures. But I was trying to find a copy of Daredevil Yellow, but couldn't find it anywhere, which wasn't really surprising because it's still a pretty popular book. So I actually stopped at a comic shop on the way home to get some free Comic Book Day comics and got Daredevil Yellow from there. But no, Sunday
that is the free Comic Book Day and the Comic-Con effect, where you're in the mood to get stuff for a deal, and that somehow translates into, if you don't find what you want, you will then immediately pay full price for it wherever you can find it, even though you would not have otherwise done so on that given day.
Yeah, exactly. So on Sunday, I almost didn't go because the train that I was taking doesn't run on Sundays, and I'm not going to pay $20 to park. So I ended up having to take another train, which then drops us off at a bus stop where we actually have to take a shuttle because they're laying track down on the train lines that would actually lead to the convention center. So there wasn't a direct train to the convention center on Sunday. So that was annoying. But I'm glad I went because I went to another 80 years of Batman panel with it was Monkey, Tomasi, Tynan, and Frank Thierry, who is, I mean, he's an interesting character. He's, a little gruff and, kind of makes some has some blue humor, but he's actually a really cool guy, really nice guy. I talked to him afterward because he talked about a Batman story he wrote about a decade ago called Gotham Underground, which I'd never heard of, but it sounded really cool because it was right coming out of, I think, Rest in Peace or R.I.P., which was, I think, Rotten Purgatory or something like that. I think that's what Morrison said it's actually stood for. It was out of that and Final Crisis with like the Salvation Run stuff that they did with a lot of the villains. So it was a Batman story without Batman, and it just focused on like a different villain each month. So I talked to Terry afterwards and asked him if he had any copies of it, even though it was an older book. I was like, since they're going to highlight it, maybe they gave him some extra comps, and, he didn't, but, he was apologetic and, a really cool guy to talk to. But after that, I went down to the Make Mine Marvel panel, which the biggest news of the show came out of that, I believe, if I do say so myself, where it was Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman, Humberto Ramos, and Matthew Rosenberg. And they talked about a lot of the stuff that they've been doing. Rosenberg talked about X-Men and Punisher, and Cates and Stegman talked a lot about Absolute Carnage and Venom, and they talked a lot about War of the Realms and everything. But the two big announcements were Humberto Ramos is actually not going to be the Spider-Man penciler any longer this summer. He's been on the book off and on Amazing Spider-Man and various other Spider-Man titles since like 2003. Yeah. And Donny Cates was like, that's the year I graduated high school. And that was also the year I graduated high school. So,
that was 2 years after I graduated high school.
So, I mean, he's been, linked to the character for so long. But Ramos is not going to be the penciler on that title any longer. He's actually moving on to a top secret project that they haven't announced yet. But I'd say it's going to be really cool, really good use of his talents and everything. The big news, though, was that Patrick Gleason has signed an exclusive deal with Marvel, and along with Ryan Ottley, he will be one of the rotating artists on The Amazing Spider-Man. And it was really funny because when they were about to start the panel, Gleason and I guess his family came in and sat down. And for like a split second, I was like, oh, Gleason must want to find out what the Spider-Man news is too. And then like immediately afterward, I was like, oh wait, Gleason probably is the Spider-Man news. But no, that's they brought him up there and they showed a lot of the like that Spider-Man image that we shared, and that other image, just other Marvel characters. The way he made it sound was he just drew that up just for fun, like just because he wanted a chance to draw a bunch of Marvel characters. It may have some tie into something else, but he seemed pretty excited, and really excited for him. Honestly, it's disappointing, but I could kind of see it coming, just with he was announced as one of the main Action Comics artists, but then he was off that after a few issues. But then he went on Young Justice, and he did, all the character designs and everything. And he only really penciled, I think, one full issue of that series, maybe two. But I mean, he was doing the covers and a little bit of interior work, but just wasn't seeing his work a lot. So I was like, I wonder if Gleason's moving on to something else. I didn't know if it was necessarily going to be moving to Marvel. I thought maybe they had him lined up for some other project or something, but no, I mean, so I could kind of see this coming in an indirect way. But no, I'm really happy for him. It's a good get for Marvel because Gleason is great. And, he's not a shabby writer either. So it'd be cool to get him maybe on I tweeted out it'd be cool to have him on like a Beta Ray Bill book that he writes and draws, or, just something like that. Something really cosmic and fun. I think that would utilize his skills well.
Well, what's amazing when you think about it is that he will now have had the opportunity to draw, and hopefully in the case of Spider-Man, for quite some time, he'll have had the opportunity to draw the three biggest superheroes in the world.
Yes,
without a doubt.
Batman and Spider-Man.
Yeah. And I'm sad to see him leave DC, but his Batman and Robin work and his Superman work are enough for me to get through years of revisiting, and I can't wait to see what he does on the Spider-Man book.
Yeah, totally. Like I said, excited for him. Talked to Tomasi a little bit afterwards, and I was like, it's kind of sad. But he's like, yeah, but it was kind of one of those. It was definitely his time. It was something that would work out for the better. So it was kind of cool getting in a third party, like a outside look at it. And he was like, yeah, we talked about it a lot, and it was just the right decision for him and everything. So it's cool that he still has the support of, the DC family too.
For sure. And he did get to draw Superboy Prime before he left DC.
Yeah. Yes, he did. So yeah, that was the first big news item. Other than Jay going to FanExpo Dallas, Patrick Gleason is exclusive to Marvel. Trying to think if there's anything else fun at the convention that I got. I did get a Daredevil in his yellow costume Funko Pop bobblehead.
Oh, very nice.
That I talked them down from $15 to $12.
I need to do some haggling when I go to these shows.
I mean, the best, that's how I got that really good deal on that Jack Kirby Fourth World Omnibus. Just because that was last year at Comic-Con, and I think it was like the first day. Usually they're a little more hesitant, until it's like Saturday or Sunday when they just want to start giving stuff away so they don't have to take as much stuff home. But this one vendor had like 3 or 4 copies of this omnibus. And I was like, look, you don't want to have to cart around any more of these than you absolutely have to, and I will buy one from you for the right price. So they sold it to me for $60. But yeah, definitely, get some haggling in there. My son also asked me to get a Flash mask, a Spider-Man mask, a Flash comic, a Spider-Man comic, and a Spider-Man Funko Pop.
No Flash Funko Pop?
No, because he already has one.
Gotcha.
I couldn't find any good Spider-Man Funko Pops that were at a good price, because all the cool ones were like $15 to $20 at least. And then the ones that were, cheaper than that were, not really ones that you'd want to get anyway. And I couldn't find a Flash or a Spider-Man mask anywhere. But at one table...
Unless you stole it from a cosplayer.
That's true, which I did not. But at one table, they had a bunch of long boxes of old, like, Showcase and Marvel Essentials books. Like the really big, thick paperbacks that are in black and white and on newsprint. So they're cheaper, but they have, like 20 or 30 issues a piece in them. You'll find them a lot at like half-price books, like just marked down really low, with like really weird titles like, Challengers of the Unknown and Sergeant Rock and stuff like that. But they had these for like $5 a piece. And I got a Peter Parker Spider-Man Volume 1, The Flash Volume 1, and then for myself, I got a Metamorpho and an Adam Strange showcase collection. So, like I said, these have like 20 to 30 issues a piece in them. So, $5 for that much comic, that much comics. What? I don't know. That's a lot of comics for, yes. So I got him those 2 showcase digests, and so that's a lot of bang for the buck there. So that's what I got him, was Flash and Spider-Man digest books, I guess you would say.
Very nice.
Anyway, enough with my Fan Expo travails. The next line of business is DC Comics last week announced that there would be a brand new Batman Superman series that launches this fall. It will come out of... I'm not sure if it's going to come out of the Batman Who Laughs book, but Batman Who Laughs will actually be the catalyst that starts it off, where Batman and Superman have to go find... they called them the Secret Six, but I think it's more of a general term and not necessarily like Catman and like Dollman and Bane and whoever else was in Secret Six before. But some people who have been infected by Batman Who Laughs, toxin, and then they gain superpowers. So Batman and Superman have to go find them. It's an interesting concept. It's going to be written by Joshua Williamson illustrated by David Marquez, who is actually a new DC exclusive artist. He's coming from Marvel.
Former Marvel, yep.
Yeah, he's coming from Marvel, and then Marvel's getting Gleason, so it's a little bit of a trade there. And then Dave Stewart, I would assume, is going to be the colorist. And yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. Williamson, I'm more cold than hot, but
Me too.
I mean, he's written some okay stuff, and yeah, I mean, I'll at least check it out because it's Batman and Superman, so might as well check it out. Curious to see if after the Batman Who Laughs miniseries wraps up, if he's going to be taken off the board, and this is going to be like an after effect of that, or if he's still going to be working in the background somehow. He's a really popular character, so it wouldn't surprise me if, even if he was quote unquote taken off the board, if he wasn't still, just waiting in the wings to be used again. But no, this is, kind of cool, and I'll definitely be checking this out when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm interested to see with Marquez and Stewart and just Marquez at DC in general. If you look at the images that were shared at the panel that you were at for Gleason at Marvel, you see to me at least, it looks like a distinctly Marvel-esque coloring approach that was taken. Whoever colored those images that Gleason produced, maybe it was Gleason himself, I don't know, but you've got a really glossy, quite a bit of light reflection effect going on in the color. It looks a lot like when Ramos actually has done Spider-Man work, the way that he's typically colored.
Right.
So interested to see if Marquez's work looks quite like it did at Marvel, or if the coloring approach ends up being a little bit differently. It'd be neat to see. I'm a lot more excited about Marquez being on that book than I am about Williamson, because like you, I tend to be a lot colder on Williamson with his DC output. He had a Vertigo book. I forget the name now, and it actually
wasn't it that Frostbite or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Frostbite. And I thought his writing on that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, but yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully, he surprises me, and I'll end up liking what he writes on that book. But for now, I'll just drool at whatever Marquez puts out about it.
And I mean, that teaser image, which was like the two covers of the first issue, kind of smushed together, that's great. I love the posing of Batman and Superman. I love how you have Batman on one side with the Batarang and the cape, and then Superman flying. And on the other side, you have Superman flying in the foreground and Batman just running. Mm-hmm. Really cool posing and everything, and with the Batman Who Laughs in the background and everything. It's a cool image.
Yeah, I wonder if the Batman Who Laughs is going to be kind of like just a specter in Bruce's mind, kind of the way that and I know you didn't play this, but in Batman Arkham Knight, the video game, Mark Hamill's Joker from the Arkham games.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Though.
Yeah, he's in the game, but he's dead. He died at the end of Arkham City. Sorry for the spoilers if you haven't played these games after all these years, which I know that might be some of you, but he's still a prominent part of the Arkham Knight game because he's sort of haunting Bruce's mind.
I could see that, especially with what's going on in Batman Who Laughs right now.
Absolutely, exactly.
Where he has become infected by the Joker's toxin. I could see that having a lingering, even if he flushes it from his system or what have you, if it's still just a lingering psychological effect of it. That's a good call. All right, and then final order of news is a week or two ago, the Eisner nominations were announced. Won't go through all of them because there's a ton. Things that I wanted to point out were pretty much the one big thing that I thought was pretty impressive was that Image swept the Best New Series category. I think there are 6 series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different series nominated for Best New Series. Every single one of those is an Image series. You got Bitterroot, Crowded, Gideon Falls, Isola, Maneaters, and Skyward. And we've been fans of at least 3 of those. So, I mean, this is a good crop of titles here. Like I said, I was just impressed that they pulled off that trick right there.
But it's a crime that Murder Falcon is not there.
Seriously, I don't think it got
anywhere for that matter.
Yeah, hang on.
It's just, it's a mess. I mean, the books that are nominated are good. The ones that I've read. I even read an issue of Crowded, which, I mean, honestly, it was a lot better than I expected, and I thought the concept was really interesting. We make use of services like Grubhub and DoorDash and Instacart from time to time here in Delaware to get groceries or takeout delivered. And so there are a lot of people working in these not crowdfunding, but what do you call them? Crowdsourcing.
Yes,
maybe?
yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff opening up like that. I mean, even something like Uber or Lyft is kind of in that ballpark. And so I thought it was interesting what that book was doing with that concept. But the absence of Murder Falcon is a crime.
For some reason, I thought it maybe got a nod for lettering, but nope, not even that. It was completely shut out, which is a travesty to everything that is good in this world. But Murder Falcon, you are number one in our hearts.
Hashtag Eisner's so not Murder Falcon.
Yeah. We'll think of a better one later. But no, I mean, there's some good stuff here. Middle West, surprisingly best publication for teens. Not so much because I think it's inappropriate for teens, but I'm pretty sure it's rated like mature. so it's kind of interesting. But it is for like older, more mature, better adjusted teenagers. It's perfectly acceptable for teenagers. Well, like I said, I'm not necessarily surprised because of the content of it. It's just how it's rated on the back of the cover kind of surprised me. But no, good ones here. And then you've got usual suspects like King and Garrett's got nominated for a bunch of Mr. Miracle again, and kind of surprised that the Tom King and Jason Fabok Swamp Thing story that they did got a nomination. That was kind of cool. And then just all sorts of stuff. Like I said, we won't go through every single one of the nominations, but congratulations to Image for completely shutting out the new series category.
You go get him, Image.
All right, so now we've got a couple of listener questions. First is from our dear friend Dylan Gilbertson.
McGilbertson.
Dillman McGilbertson. I don't know where that came from, but I guess I'll start using that now. His question, and this is a head scratcher, or a chin scratcher, rather. Very, very serious, very heavy question here from Dylan. Beard vision, the ability to make anything instantly grow a beard by looking at it, or gravy vision, shooting a stream of gravy, you can only choose one flavor out of your eyes, and why? Which would you choose, Brian?
Gravy vision.
What type of gravy?
Well, first of all, I choose gravy vision because I can't grow a beard, and I'm not going to bestow a beard upon other people when I can't even grow one myself, and I'm assuming that I cannot look in a mirror and reflect the beard vision on my own face. And even if I could, I would probably screw it up, and the vision would, aim at my eyes, and I would grow like an eye beard, and it would just be a total mess. So gravy vision, both because I cannot grow a beard and will grudgingly prevent somebody else from having that, but then also because, gravy, right?
But again, the question stands, what type of gravy?
It would be beef gravy. Because beef gravy goes well with beef. It goes well with pork. It goes well with 2 pieces of white bread and nothing else.
Ooh, just sop it up. Sop that gravy up.
So what kind of vision?
Shoot it out of your eyes.
Yeah, it would actually be a decent weapon as well, right?
True,
if you shoot a beard onto somebody's face when they're attacking you, you're only going to make them more powerful. But if you can shoot gravy at somebody and it clogs up their nose and their mouth and their pores, they're going to just fall over and die fight
This is
over,
true.
you win.
My power comes from my beard and my power stance when I'm playing music. So you take away one of those, and all I have left is a power stance. And really, Brian, what is a power stance without a beard?
I don't know.
Okay, then. See, I wanted to say beard vision because I have a beard. And I've always wanted to go and get one of those, like, straight razor hot towel shaves, with where they get, like, all the oils and then, rub it into your pores and then...
Yeah, speaking of rubbing it in, if you don't stop gushing about your beard, I'm going to gush some gravy up your nose holes.
It's okay. If I have beard vision, I could give you a beard. And then you could give me gravy. And then everybody wins.
The ultimate duo.
Everybody wins. So, I'm going to say beard vision because I want a hot towel shave and I want Brian to know the magnificence of having a beard.
If you give me a beard, you can have a hot gravy shave.
Oh, snaps. I bet that is really good for your complexion.
Yeah. And
with the flour and then the fats and everything. Oh, man.
Yeah, you would have a certain sheen once the shave is over. So
and it'd be tasty. So you could have a little snack while they're shaving you up. Anyway, next, thank you very much, Dylan, for the absolutely incredible, totally dumb, but what are we if not two guys who like to laugh at dumb stuff question? We appreciate it. And dear listeners, let us know what you would choose, beard vision or one flavor of gravy vision.
Yes.
Next question comes from another good friend of the show on Twitter. It's Cinematic Universe at Martinez XYZ. It is a longer one, and this is at least a comic-related question. So bear with me. It's he says, so I have a question that's based on the recent release of Heroes in Crisis 8. The question is not about the book itself, but the reactions. Surprisingly, I'm not referring to the death threats being made towards Tom King. We all know that's just now how fandom works. And side note, that is completely despicable. And do not send people death threats no matter what, ever. I mean, that is ridiculous. And this is me talking, not Martinez, even though I'm sure he agrees with me. These are just comics. I don't like the fact that Wally West murdered a bunch of people, even if it was on accident, but that is no reason to tell somebody that you wish that they would die. That is just completely not even immature. That is violent, dangerous, and just completely despicable. So do not do that, people. And I'm sure you agree with me, Brian.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, sadly, we do know that that is how fandom works, especially with the anonymity of the internet. He goes on, but I noticed something else that I don't think people bring up or talk about openly. The other creators. Be it at DC or Marvel or the independent labels. You always see a lot of creators teasing other creators' work, saying, guys, this is so good, or you should pick this book up next week. It's a game changer, right? Ever notice how you almost never read other creators speaking even remotely negative about others' works? I'm sure creators support other creators, but sometimes you got to wonder if it's all part of marketing and PR. It wouldn't look good if Snyder says, I like you, Tom, but I don't think you should have done that. So the question is, when was the last time a creator openly trashed or at the very least didn't support another's work? When was the last time someone openly stated they don't fully agree with the creative choices their creator brothers and sisters are doing? Mark Waid certainly didn't have a problem writing an op-ed on Man of Steel 6 years ago. That is a good, very heavy, almost loaded question. I showed this to you a few weeks ago, didn't I, Brian? So we could have some time to think about it. Yep. Have you thought of your response or answer to this?
I have, yeah. So I can't think of an example of a creator trashing or being harsh with another creator's work that I've seen. And honestly, that I'm okay with. Like, if you are looking for sort of professional workshop style advice, there's no reason for that to be public, and there's no reason to have to saddle the creator that you're critiquing with having to deal with that critique in front of a bunch of other people on the internet. So I'm happy that I haven't seen anything like that, because I think that it's probably bad form and it's just not conducive to good relationship building. The thing that I do see a lot, and this is something that I'll just come out with it. I don't like it. Is there's a lot of gushing, including gushing at times when I just have to ask myself, does the person who is gushing really feel this way about what they're gushing about? Mm. Where there's people gushing about books that do have serious problems, that do seriously miss the mark, that clearly understand a particular character in a completely different way than the person, the other creator who is doing the gushing. And it just makes you question the credibility of that other creator's critique. I think I know where that comes from. A lot of times they're trying to be supportive. They're trying to help the other creator who they know is going to have a crappy Wednesday, feel some sense of solidarity from a fellow creator. But you're also doing this in front of fans. And if you as a creator are attaching your name in praise to something that is not praiseworthy, it does not reflect very well on you. The other thing that kind of bothers me a little bit is that there's some books that just deserve praise but don't get it from other creators. And I can think of no clearer example of that from DC Comics than Red Hood and the Outlaws. From the start of Rebirth until sometime into the 20s of the issues for that book, the book was not just solidly decent, but it was really good, and sometimes it was great. And that book, as far as I could tell, got just no love at all on social media from anybody who wasn't on the team that was making it. And that was a real shame. And I saw other books, more prominent books with more prominent creators getting praised, and I'm scratching my head wondering why. And yet you have this book that is actually quite good that people are just ignoring. And that kind of bothers me.
Yeah, and I mean, I do agree. I mean, our whole mission statement here with Comics Now is, we talk about books that we love. So we're not, we're not against being, positive. Of course, who's against that? That's stupid to be against, saying good things about things that you like. But I mean, we're not against that. We're not against, lavishing praise on anything. I do understand where you're coming from and totally get it. Sometimes you see somebody praising a book, and I mean, some of it is, maybe not are they being disingenuous, but how much of it is just, are they more supporting the creator rather than the creation? Like, it's like, oh, check this out from, my buddy, so-and-so or whomever, without directly praising the book, just saying, I've got the so-and-so has this coming out this week, so go check it out. I mean, there is a lot of it is, because it's such a tightly knit industry. I mean, you don't want to make enemies, and more than that, you just don't want to be a jerk. Because I can only think of one person off the top of my head who may have done this before, but I don't even want to name it because I may be remembering things incorrectly, and it may not have actually been what actually happened, so I don't want to slander somebody for something that didn't happen. But I believe that there was a very high profile creator at one point who, once they were finished working on their books, they and effectively were shown the door, they turned around and just lambasted anyone and everyone, about everything. And they've effectively burned all bridges within the comics industry because of that. So, there's some of that, just trying to, save face for yourself and have a good relationship with everyone. There's a lot of that. I do think a lot of it is because they genuinely support each other. And, like the books, a lot of it, and I hate to even say it, a lot of it may be because they recognize maybe the story decision wasn't actually the writer's decision or the artist's decision, but they had to run with it. So they're showing support for them because they know it's going to get some sort of backlash.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, knowing that it's not their fault that this thing that people aren't going to like is happening, but they were told to do it and had no other choice. So I wonder if there's a lot of that in there too.
Yeah, there could be. And I mean, that's, I definitely, I feel for them in that. And I mean, that's why I know for me, and you probably feel the same way, one of the joys of this podcast and our site in only covering what we like is that we can recommend to people what we think they ought to read. And we kind of leave it up to them, what to make of the rest of it. And just thinking about what goes into creating a 20 to 22 page comic for a writer, and particularly for an artist who is, often spending 12 to 15 hour days almost every day of the month turning that book around. I take no joy at all in making their Wednesday any more stressful than it already is. And so I can definitely understand where somebody who's in the same boat would be tempted to be extra praiseworthy, whether or not the work actually merits it, because it's just such a hard feeling that only the people that are in that same situation can fully understand.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, a lot of it too, like I says, I mean, some of it is like it's not good, decorum to go on like Twitter and tag somebody in a complaint. It's like, that's just rude and dumb, and, kind of gross. And, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, you could cynically call it like an office politics kind of thing, with not wanting to rock the boat. But like I said earlier, it's a fairly tight-knit industry. People support each other and work with each other, so some artist may slag some writer and say, oh, this was crap. And then 2 months later find out that they're put on the same book together. There's a lot of that going into it. A lot of it just wanting to have good relationships. I mean, it's the same reason that I don't like to, if I see another site do something or cover something in a way that I don't like or appreciate, I don't like to call that out because, that's not, good decorum. It's not good camaraderie. And I mean, really, me saying something about it isn't really going to change much of anything. It's just going to make me look like a butthead. And, not going to change the thing that I disagreed with. Now, meeting, and a lot of this too comes down to, which we haven't really discussed, but a lot of this is, it's all in a public forum. Getting something done in a public forum is near impossible. If you actually go and talk to somebody behind closed doors or, face to face, actually have a general discussion with them, you may be able to say, hey, I wasn't, a fan of this, or I didn't think this worked. But there was this and this, and then you can also get their perspective. And you can also put in, well, here's why I didn't like this, or here's what I thought. Or, you could go any number of ways by actually having a conversation. But
Sure.
Going on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever is, even if you can respond, it's not nearly the same as a face-to-face conversation, because even if they know the people, they know each other, they're not actually conversing with each other. They're
Right.
conversing with everybody who can jump in there. So,
Right.
So
It's
it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, it's two people on a stage with an audience.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not an intimate conversation with a comfortable dynamic.
Yeah, and I mean, to Martinez's point about, Mark Waid writing an op-ed about Man of Steel, I get the point there, but it's also the fact that DC Comics and the Warner Brothers film division are two completely different entities. Not to say Waid was necessarily right to go off on what he hated about Man of Steel, but he and, Zack Snyder and David Goyer and Christopher Nolan and, everyone else who was involved with, Man of Steel, they're not really contemporaries. They're not working in the same field or even the same industry. So, Mark Waid saying that about that movie versus, and I'm just making this up. I don't know that he's ever done this, but, Mark Waid saying something negative about, Tom King's work, that's two completely different scenarios because he and King are doing the same type of work, whereas he and filmmakers are not.
Right. It is more of the fan relationship that Wade has to the Man of Steel film than it is a like for like sort of. They're not in the same positions. He's a fan, and I think I read that op-ed, and he writes as somebody that loves Superman and feels like the film fundamentally misunderstood him.
Oh, I don't disagree with a lot of his views on it. It's just like you put it perfectly. He was writing as a fan about a Superman movie. Like if I were to write something to Mark Waid on Twitter to say, I don't like how you did this. It's me as a fan saying I didn't like his work is the same way him saying he didn't like the work of a film is kind of the same equation, because I'm not working in the comics industry and he's not working in the film industry. So there is that disconnect in how we approach, the subject matter too. So that's an excellent point.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, Martinez, I hope you found our answer and discussion at least satisfactory. Like I said, I can only think of one example that I'm even loath to name any names in case it didn't actually happen, because I don't want to be, accused of accusing somebody of something that didn't actually happen. But, ultimately the reason is because you want to have good relationships with people. You want to build up your contemporaries rather than tearing them down. And, some of it too is just, covering their own butts, because one month they may be, everyone's, golden child creator, but then the next month they write something that completely turns half of fandom on them. So they may be in the same position. And, if they were there being, a jerk to somebody who was doing something that wasn't quite up to par before, you're not going to have people coming to your defense and wanting, people to give you a fair shake if you were being that jerk too.
Yes. Don't be a jerk.
The moral of this story is don't be a jerk.
Jerk bad, not jerk.
Also,
not bad.
Tasty gravy.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So, I guess I'm just spearheading a lot of the discussion here, but that is okay because this is live radio, ladies and gentlemen.
Live radio.
If you're not aware, all, three of you, based on the box office numbers who have not actually seen this movie, Avengers Endgame came out 2 weeks ago, and we both seen it. We wanted to do some general thoughts on it because we both at least, I think we enjoyed at least aspects of the movie enough to talk about it positively. But our dearly beloved and incredibly handsome comic chief, Andrew Asbury, brought up a question that he wanted us to discuss, a topic that he wanted us to discuss. So we'll do that after we give our overall Endgame thoughts. So, Brian, what did you think of Avengers Endgame?
I enjoyed watching the movie. I thought it was entertaining. I thought there were parts that were genuinely great. I think Infinity War was a much better film. I also think that the movie kind of descends into, at times, humor, and at other times, particularly late in the film, sentimentality, at the expense of maybe quite as profound a finish as they could have had, particularly with the talent of the Russos and Marcus and McFeely involved in bringing this this film together. Before we started recording, I kind of was thinking about this, and I thought of a line from Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins that I think kind of sums up the way that I feel about a lot of this movie, and that's when he says to Bruce, as they are doing some swordplay together, he says, "You've sacrificed sure footing for a killing stroke." And I feel that way about a lot of what they did in this movie, where they sort of went for the big fan pleasing moment. They went for the big sentimental moment. They rode Thor Lebowski like a chubby burro through a lot of the film as well. And I think that in doing that, I don't think they realized the potential of what they had built up to this moment. All of that said, I have a great deal of sympathy for them. It's very hard to try to, tie a bow up on so many years of filmmaking and storytelling, and it's I get it. It's really difficult. I just, at least after one viewing, feel like I feel like they fell short of the bar that they've set in prior films, particularly Infinity War.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I think it sounds like more than you did. I mean, not to say you didn't like it, but I did enjoy it more than you did. The last hour or so, even things that maybe weren't set up in the film as well as they could have been, there were some things that paid off about as well as they possibly could have. Even though you can poke holes in it, I do like, Captain America's ending, that he gets a happy ending. He gets to live a life, which, I mean, I'll circle back to some other things that make me not necessarily love the way they approached it, but I at least like that they did that. The final act, from the point, and again, everyone's seen this movie, and if you haven't, guys, you've seen the movie. And if you haven't, somehow, we're going to talk spoilers. So, you've been warned. But from about when Thanos's ship comes and blows up the compound, at least up until Iron Man's snap, and then, the scenes immediately preceding from that, was almost perfection. I mean, I was just sheer comic book spectacle perfection, let's say. I mean, there's stuff in it that's not perfect, but just from a crowd pleasing fan service standpoint, Cap picking up Mjolnir and wielding it is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a movie.
That was pretty incredible.
Life. That was, and I didn't even see it coming either. Like when the hammer rises, I thought it was Thor, summoning it to himself. But then, it goes back off camera and you see Cap, catch it. And I was like, oh my gosh.
I love Thor's reaction too. I knew it.
That was great. Finally, the on your left, right. I do wish that Cap had, you'll never win as long as there's one man, stand up against you, or, whatever he says in Infinity Gauntlet. The spirit of it was there, and that was an amazing shot. Just, Cap by himself on one end of the field with Thanos and his armies and, the hordes and legions of his, everything behind him. Just seeing Cap standing there alone. The spirit of it was cool, but it would have been cool to have, a line along those lines of, I'm still here to, stand against you. So, you haven't won yet. Kind of thing. That would have been cool, but that was great. And then, all the heroes, coming in through the portal. Apparently Howard the Duck is in there somewhere. So I've seen it twice and I didn't even know about it until after my second viewing. So I definitely want to go back and try to see Howard the Duck. But then, finally getting Avengers Assemble, I'm not going to lie, I kind of squealed with glee when that happened. But I mean, that was just great. And even, Tony's sacrifice, it felt earned, especially with his arc over all of the movies and everything. It was a nice endpoint for at least this, saga of films. It's the 2 hours leading up to that I'm a little more, I don't know. It's just a weird movie up until that final hour. On the one hand, I love how it almost justifies lesser beloved films in the franchise, like Thor: The Dark World and, Doctor Strange, and even Age of Ultron. There are lots of payoffs from those. And I mean, Thor talking with Frigga, his mother, that was a great scene. With Banner on the rooftop with the Ancient One, that was really cool. And I mean, those were moments that were more, going back into the, Avengers, Battle of New York and everything. That was fan service, not necessarily in a bad way, but a little more expected for them to do. And I enjoyed it, but a lot of it just comes down to the rules of time travel, which make more sense on a second viewing when you know what to look out for. The problem I found is, and most, if not all of it's in there, and even the Russos have come out and, explained how time travel is actually working. It's all there in the movie if you pay attention. The problem is some of the lines come so quickly that they're easy to miss, or some of them are kind of hand waved away that it sounds like it's a joke, but it's really not. It's actually how the time travel mechanics work in the film. So it is weird how they handled that in the movie, because it doesn't, quite sit right when you're first watching it, just because it's like, I'm not sure if this actually makes sense at all. I'm pretty sure it does, but even then, I do kind of wish they would have found some other way to get the stones. But the time travel aspect was at least cool to, like I said, to make a movie that most people don't exactly love, make it worth it in the whole narrative of the story. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've got to say, surprisingly, I think my two favorite characters from Infinity War, which, yes, I will agree, that is the better movie. It's a better constructed movie. It's better structured. And it's even paced better, too. It's one half of a longer movie. So, I mean, that's what's bringing it down. But, I mean, it's the same thing with Endgame, is it's the second half of a longer movie. But I really think that my two favorite characters, other than, Cap, were Nebula and Rocket Raccoon. I feel like that they had the best stories and the best characterizations in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's right. I need to see it again still, and I probably will soon with my son Donovan. But after my first viewing, I don't know. I think I would say Iron Man. I think Hawkeye's role in the movie started out very interesting, and then I think just kind of got to be kind of less so as time went by. But the opening to the movie, I thought the opening was outstanding. I mean, that first scene with Hawkeye, I thought was amazing.
Yeah, I wish they had more of him as Ronin in there. Because, they, you see him and then you don't even hear from him for another, 30 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. And then Black Widow and, War Machine, they talk about him a little bit, but even then you don't see what he's actually doing for like another 15 to 20 minutes. And it's just that one scene. I wish they would have, shown a little bit more of him, doing what he's been doing as, an active. I mean, it's hard to say what he was doing because it's not penance for everything. And it's not necessarily vengeance because the people that he was, massacring didn't actually do anything to cause his loss. So it wasn't revenge or anything like that. I mean, it was a skewed form of justice is what he was doing. But,
it's not revenge. It's avenge.
It's revengeance. But yeah,
I used to be an Avenger, but now I'm a revenger.
But yeah, I wish we could have seen him a little bit more, because I mean, he has a pretty quick, heel turn. The Black Widow shows up and is like, "Hey, we might have hope," and it was nice. I liked his line of, "Don't give me hope." That was a really heartbreaking line and everything. But from then on out, he's not conflicted. He's not angry or anything, which I suppose was the less predictable route. And I genuinely thought he was going to sacrifice himself, and felt it would have been a good ending for his character. But yeah, I mean, the idea of his story was more interesting than how his story actually played out.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall thoughts of Endgame. It's not the best of the Marvel movies, by a long shot. I mean, it's definitely up there. The fact that they even made it and even somewhat stuck the landing is commendable. And I mean, it's by no means a disaster of a movie in any way. No. There are things that I would have done different. There are things that I don't think worked. There are things that I thought worked better than I originally thought they would have, though. So, I mean, it's an enjoyable movie.
One of the things that bothered me the most, and it's a small thing, but it really bothered me, is I wasn't nuts about the Captain Marvel film. I wanted to like it, but I don't think I got enough of her character in that movie for me to feel one way or the other about her. I hate the way that they used her in this movie.
I mean, they almost didn't know how to use her.
Yeah, well, I mean, for starters, she's just there. Like you're assuming, and maybe fairly, maybe not, but you're assuming that, like, your huge, largest possible Avengers audience, everybody is going to be familiar with who she is and why she's there. Why not have the movie start after the little prologue with Hawkeye? Have the movie start with Carol answering that page that Fury set off and returning to Earth. I don't know. I think that would have been better. And I know they were trying to give plenty of screen time to the original Avengers lineup, and that's great. But I mean, give her a little more time just to establish her for the audience, and you have an opportunity here after her financially successful first film to expose her to the even wider audience, and maybe make that audience go back and see Captain Marvel while it's still in theaters. But I think they squandered that opportunity with her.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of how she was handled in the movie either. I mean, like I said, it's almost like they didn't know what to do with her. So, I mean, they at least gave somewhat of an explanation as to why she's not there for everything. She has a good point that, there are thousands of worlds she's visited, and none of them have a team to look over them like Earth does with the Avengers. So, I mean, she's needed elsewhere. They at least explain it in a way that makes sense for why she would be off the board for so long. It's just, I mean, she felt like the worst type of, Deus Ex Machina, coming in at the very last second to save everybody.
Right. And just smashing the ship.
Yeah. Which, I mean, was cool, but still, it's like, I mean, I wish she would have had more involvement in the movie and actually been a character in the movie instead of a means, for the heroes to win.
Sure.
That said, I mean, people say it's contrived and everything, but I did love the female Avengers shot where all the women come up and crowd around Spidey and everything, and, just more and more walk up. I mean, I turned to my wife and I was like, that shot isn't for me, but I still think it's great just because,
I don't know. Awesome. It felt really forced to me. I thought that the moment in Infinity War with Okoye and Scarlet Witch and Black Widow, to me, that felt like it just sprung up a lot more naturally. Like, sure. There was in Infinity War, you had distinct locations in that battle in Wakanda, and there was a particular reason why those 3 women were in that place at that time. And in Endgame, part of the problem is you just have this large, wide open, scorched earth CGI battleground. And so it's kind of like, hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. And I don't know. It just, it doesn't matter to me that it's not for me. I think I could still look at that and objectively say that this, to me at least, seems like it's more of a forced insertion than that similar moment in Infinity War.
Sure. And I mean, I won't argue it. I mean, I will acknowledge that, it could be seen as contrived. Like I said, I didn't think so. It may have just been because I was just, not to say you weren't either, but I mean, I just, in the moment, I was just so much like, oh man, this is, just high adrenaline, just, the joy of, those scenes there on the battlefield and just being wrapped up in everything. So not to say any response to it was correct or incorrect. It's just, I thought it was cool, but I understand people not liking it either. Anyway, so, generally we enjoyed the movie. I still hold that Captain America, the first Avenger, that's still probably my favorite of the lot. Along with Black Panther and, the other 2 Captain Americas and Spider-Man Homecoming and, all sorts of stuff. I enjoy those. This is definitely one that I probably won't revisit as a whole very often, but definitely watch.
Flipping huge.
Yeah, it's 3 hours long.
I don't sit down and watch The Fellowship of the Ring very often either.
Yeah. Which I love that too. But it's you have to invest in those. But definitely see myself going back and watching snippets, just extended scenes and everything for a while. But yeah, generally liked it. But like I said, excuse me, our dearly beloved, incredibly handsome and talented and handsome comic chief, Andrew the Handsome Asbury, wants to know where we think the movies will go from here and what other big threats could be included.
Okay, I'm going to briefly poop on Captain Marvel again. And not on Captain Marvel the character, but on something that they did in that film that was actually one of my favorite parts of that film, but seriously undercuts some potential that they had in the universe.
The Skrulls.
Yes. Exactly. Like, so I actually really liked just in that movie, I really liked the arc for the Skrulls, and in particular Telos. That was his name, right? Telos?
I
Talos.
think so, yeah.
Talos,
yeah.
Telos was that really weird villain from that DC Convergence thing. Yeah. So anyway, and then who weirdly got his own book later. Those were dark times.
Yeah.
But anyway, Talos. So the Skrulls, essentially in Captain Marvel, and by extension in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, became a greatly misunderstood people. Or at least that group of them did. So,
but which I mean, I'm sure you get to it, but I'm sure that's how they could explain it. Like, that's a small subset of the Skrulls who wanted peace, whereas other Skrulls maybe are more, bloodthirsty and want to engage in war with the Kree. But
yes, but like a Skrulls secret invasion kind of thing. You could easily, most of the movie-going audience wouldn't see it coming. You could pull off another, SHIELD is actually Hydra type of twist that you had in the MCU in the first 10 years. You could pull off a similar thing with Skrulls, where you go through and, from this point forward, go through another 4 or 5 years of movies, and then you come to find out that a lot of the people that you've been seeing have actually been Skrulls.
Yeah.
And things are pretty much already, close to over. The doomsday clock is very close to midnight. It is midnight bad for Doomsday Clock, right? I'm not really familiar with the Doomsday Clock.
Yes.
Okay, the Doomsday Clock is nearing midnight.
Midnight means there's a bomb either on the way or it's already hit and you're dead.
Or a crap ton of Skrulls who have infiltrated all of the high
analogy,
positions. Yes.
Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
Midnight is Skrulls.
Yeah, so I think...
Scroll a clock.
Yeah, the Skrulls, and I guess, the Skrulls could still be a potential threat that they could use. But spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the Spider-Man Spider-Man Far From Home trailer that came out today. Today is Monday, May the 6th, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, so there is a reference to the multiverse in that trailer.
I have thoughts about that.
Yeah. So there are other potential threats that could be brought into this from other worlds. There could be old threats made new with their alternate reality selves. So I think that's a possibility. But here's the thing: Disney bought Fox, and you've got two of the most iconic villains in all of Marvel Comics who are now right there for the taking for Disney. You've got Galactus and you've got Doctor Doom. And I would be super surprised if you did not see Galactus and Doctor Doom somehow factor in to the next major leg of Marvel films.
Yeah, the thing about the multiverse that I've seen, reactions both ways today. When I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, sweet multiverse," and I mean, I'm fine with it. I love all that weirdness and wackiness and everything. In the movie Far From Home, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Mysterio is kind of a charlatan anyway.
Yep.
If he made that up just for his story to earn trust before, he was revealed to be the villain. Like, there isn't actually a multiverse. He just, picked up these threads about what the Avengers did, with these branching timelines that they created. He said he was from one of these. He's come because his world, was destroyed or whatever and wants to help and everything. But really, he's just a big sack of crap.
Yes, but I have an equation. And that equation is, it's the Vision, from Infinity War or Civil War, or anyway.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Everybody laugh. So you could be right. That's a distinct possibility. However, the other thing I thought of in that trailer, if I can go down a rabbit trail, a short one, is that the possibility of the multiverse, that opens up in a very real way the possibility of a live-action Miles Morales a lot sooner than we might have anticipated.
Yeah, that's the other part where I come at supporting it. The only reason I would be against it is, I mean, it would be an easy way for them to get another Captain America and Steve Rogers in there, get another Tony Stark, which I'm afraid they would be tempted to do, because that would undercut the endings to their stories in Endgame. However, that would be a way we could get Miles Morales in there. That would also be a way that we could get the X-Men and Fantastic Four in there as well, without having to say, "Hey, why weren't you here fighting Thanos with us 3 weeks ago?"
Right.
It's because they're from another dimension that gets folded in with the main one. So if they go that route, I definitely support it.
Ooh, the next big villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Josh Trank.
Oh gosh. I mean, seriously, Galactus and Doom make the most sense. Doom would be really fun if he was just more like the persistent thorn, like they want to fight him, but he's always in Latveria doing stuff, and his citizens are like, "No, we like it here. Screw you guys, leave." And then that would be more fun, to see played out over, multiple films. And then Galactus, Andrew did bring up the point that Galactus is more a force of nature than somebody that you can empathize with, which that is one thing that I liked about Thanos was in Infinity War. even if you don't necessarily agree with what he's doing, you could at least see where he's coming from. Whereas in Endgame, I love the fact that he just starts getting annoyed and pissed off at the heroes and just becomes a bloodthirsty titan and tyrant.
Sure.
So I did kind of like how you kind of get both Thanos's
there is some precedent for Galactus being humanized though as well, and particularly in the Wade and Waringo run, there's hints at his past. He was once isn't
he the last survivor? Yeah, he was the last survivor of the universe before this universe.
Yeah, his name was Galen.
Yes,
and so there's some potential there, but I would actually like to see them ignore that potential with Galactus in the MCU and stick to him being the force of nature. Let the pathos of that thread come from the Silver Surfer, not from Galactus.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. With the big threats that they could do, Doom and Galactus make the most sense. I'm trying to think of anybody else. I've seen King the Conqueror thrown out a lot, but it's like, well, they just did time travel in Endgame, so you don't want somebody who time travels to be part of it. Trying to think of anybody. Thunderbolts. That's one thing that's been rumored is to have Baron Zemo come back and put together his own team. That are you familiar with the Thunderbolts?
Not particularly.
They were effectively, like, when the series came out, they were like all introduced as brand new superheroes, like nobody that anybody had ever heard of. And they were a new superhero team. But I think at the very end of the first issue, you find out that the leader of the team is actually Baron Zemo in disguise. And all of the heroes were existing villains. And they were masquerading as heroes to gain the world's trust, so they could do shady dealings on the internet. So that would be kind of cool. Not necessarily have a universe spanning threat, but maybe more just a team there that kind of undercuts the credibility of the Avengers by being even more heroic than them or something like that. That could be pretty interesting. One thing that I do hope, though, is that they not that they lose the interconnectivity, but they don't focus on it as much.
Yep, agreed.
Like, have Happy Hogan show up in a Spider-Man movie, and have Thor in the Asgardians of the Galaxy, which I certainly hope it's called. But not.
Well, he said that in the movie. Remember?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I really hope that's how what they do is the Asgardians of the Galaxy. Definitely have the characters mingle with each other and everything, but it doesn't necessarily need to lead to one big story for everybody.
Yeah, maybe, we're not all sniffing around for Infinity Stones in the post credits of every movie.
Yeah, maybe once they bring, the Fantastic Four in, they have a couple of movies where, they're, waiting for, the arrival of Galactus. While, maybe there are, hints to it, mentions of it in other movies. And then when he finally comes, everybody teams up. But it's not, it's more the, to cap off the Fantastic Four, trilogy of movies story rather than the Marvel Cinematic Universe movie series. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, it does.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, I hope for some more standalone films, because I like the interconnectivity, but I also like it when you can just pop a movie in and then enjoy it.
Absolutely.
I actually recently rewatched Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Doctor Strange. And those movies are a lot of fun to watch. I mean,
I think they are too. Yeah.
They stand on their own pretty well. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I didn't think much of it when I first saw it. And then when I watched it again, I was just like, whatever. I'm on a Marvel movie kick, and I kind of just want to get, revisit some of these. Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp is, I mean, it's enjoyable. It's, paced well, and, it's breezy and it's fun. There's other than introducing the quantum realm, or rather expanding upon the quantum realm, it doesn't do an awful lot that leads into anything, but that is a pretty big part of, the Endgame story.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it was still just an enjoyable movie to watch.
Yeah. Real quick too. Other things that I hope to see in the new MCU beyond villains. So, Moon Knight. I mean, I want to see Moon Knight, and I think they could make a really interesting Moon Knight film with the origin and everything. And I think that would be pretty rad. And then I want them to pretend like the Abomination that I haven't even watched did not happen. And particularly when you have the Fantastic Four coming in, give us the Inhumans. I want to see Black Bolt in his costume. I want to see Medusa's flowing hair that doesn't look like whatever that was. And I want to see Lockjaw. Yes. They've got to do it. Like, give us the Inhumans on a regular Marvel film budget, and give the people what they want.
And I hate the fact that they're not going to, but I would love it. I mean, since they canceled the Netflix shows, if they would just put those characters, put Daredevil and Punisher in a Moon Knight movie, have them, be secondary character, tell Moon Knight's story and have it be his movie, but, have these other, a street level vigilante, and then, Punisher, maybe, Moon Knight and Daredevil need to team up and go after Punisher or something like that. I don't know. Just, bring them in because they have, good actors. I mean, I think that given better material, the guy who played Iron Fist could even be, better in his role. Give us a Heroes for Hire movie. It is right there, guys. Come on.
It would be amazing.
Yes. Anyway. All right. I think we've talked about the Marvel films enough. So let's talk about some actual comics. Just to wrap this up in the next few minutes here. So Brian, what are some other books that you've been liking lately?
Well, it's no surprise to you, and it's no surprise to people that read my posts and my review, but I enjoyed Savage Avengers quite a bit. The first issue of that series came out this past week. I don't think it was great necessarily, but I thought it was really good, and there were moments of greatness, and I think it was actually a really, really good start to that series. Mm-hmm. And the exchanges between Wolverine and Conan were pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you liked it more than I did, but that's not to say that I didn't like it. I like the potential of it. It was a quick read. I mean, it wasn't, a slog by any means like that. I was hoping for a little bit more of each of the characters in there, but what we got was cool. I really liked seeing Wolverine and Conan play off of each other. And then, they've completely screwed up with what they've done to Punisher's family, and I cannot wait to see him get retribution. Have you read him punish some dudes?
Have you read the prologue in the free comic book day Avengers issue yet?
No, I haven't. In fact, I don't think my comic shop had that one. I think they only had the Spider-Man one, which I picked up.
Okay, you can grab it in digital too, I think. And
cool.
No, so it puts the other players on the board.
Elektra, Venom.
Well, Venom already appeared in Savage Avengers #1 very briefly. The one page where it says Conan finally found the owner of the amulet that he was seeking, and then it shows Conan behind bars. And if you look close to the top of that panel, you can actually see Venom in a cage above the body that's laying out on the table.
I think I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we get to see Elektra and we see Wolverine again. That's everybody now, right? I mean, we got Venom, Elektra, Wolverine, Brother Voodoo. Yeah, he was in the #1. Yeah.
And Conan. Yeah, I think that's everybody.
Yeah. So I thought the prologue was really good too. So for those of you out there, if you didn't get a chance to pick that up on Free Comic Book Day, see if you can find it, or pick up the digital issue in the Marvel app or Comixology.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi is being a little spotty right now, so once it's up on the Marvel app, I'll try to find that and download it.
Then the other book that I really enjoyed recently was The Silencer number 16. And this series is sadly drawing to a close, but number 16, the protagonist, honor guest, the assassin known as the Silencer, she is on a rampage, but it's a rampage that she has earned in this series. This series has been it's been all about her family situation and her heart for her family and just wanting to lead a normal life with them. And it's also been about crazy villains, crazy action, and just really amazingly rendered battles and things like that. And,
yes.
number 16 certainly has a whole lot of that.
Yeah, I think 18 in June, that's going to be the final issue, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I've really been enjoying that book from the beginning, which is crazy because I kind of, I think we all went into it saying like, well, okay, we'll give this a shot. And we both loved it. And, it's been consistently at least good from the beginning. So,
DC actually managed to create a brand spanking new character. They didn't lean heavily on guest appearances to make the book sell. And just a legitimately good brand new character. And I just feel like I haven't seen that in a really long time. From either of the big two. So
yeah, definitely. So hopefully, barring however the series ends, hopefully Honor pops up somewhere down the road, because I really like her and hope to read some more from her, hopefully. But yeah, so those are both good, solid picks. I would agree with both of those. Yeah, I was about to go into that. Live radio, everybody.
Trying to segue for you, Jay. Trying to segue.
Chimpanzee riding on a Segway. Chimpanzee. Have you ever seen that YouTube video?
Nah.
Okay. When we're done, look up chimpanzee riding a Segway.
When we're done, I'm going to relieve myself.
Okay, well, watch it while you're doing. You can multitask. It is exactly what you think it is, which is the greatest thing that has ever graced the internet. Chimpanzee riding a Segway.
So, Jay, what are some other books
that you've been enjoying some other comics I've been reading? I've been working my way through Charles Soule's Daredevil run. I think I'm on like volume 4 or 5 now. Let me pull it up here. It didn't necessarily start off rough. It's just Mark Waid's was just swashbuckling, classic comic adventure fun. Whereas I just got a text from Brian where he is doubling down on having to relieve himself. So I'll finish up quick. Anyway, Daredevil, Mark Waid's Daredevil was swashbuckling, like classic comics fun. Soule's is a little bit more of the street level, vigilante, kind of gritty. It's not overwhelmingly gritty and like morose, but it is more of the, go around and busting heads kind of thing. There's a lot of, I'm getting into where I am in the series, getting into where he's about to, I believe, propose his legal precedent to allow costumed heroes to testify on the stand, which I think is the big thing that Soule had wanted to do in his run, because I think he's actually a lawyer himself, so he incorporated a lot of that. And one of the big things that he introduced was Matt Murdock figured out a way to allow himself and Spider-Man and any other costumed hero to be able to testify in a court of law without having to unmask themselves. I'm almost to that point, I believe. So it's been pretty interesting. Also, several weeks ago, I read a book called Ye or Yay from IDW by Guillermo Petrica. It was a very quick read. It was an original graphic novel about a man who, after some sort of being taken over by this dark king, found himself only able to say the word ye. Brian, you read this as well, and actually wanted to devote an episode to it at one point, but stuff's gotten away from us, and I'll just discuss it here. But it was very interesting. It was very weird. I think it was talking a lot about like mental health and overcoming mental obstacles that you have and everything. But it was a really good read, and I enjoyed it. And had some beautiful artwork too. So definitely recommend picking up Ye.
Yee!
There you go. From IDW. So those are the books we enjoy. Brian, do you want to go over our new Patreon perks?
Yeah, so it's really one new perk so far, and we are looking at trying to revamp the perkalization of our Patreon page to maybe finally entice that first person to support us on Patreon. So
that could be you. And I'm not talking to Brian. I'm talking to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, the website is doing great. We actually had a crazy month last month and almost got to 10,000 unique users for the month of April, which is insane.
Yes.
And we're off to a really good start this month. We're already probably around 2,500 users for the month today on the 6th. So it's going well. And we're hoping to have some of you guys help support. So the new perk that we've introduced, and I had this idea last week. I buy a number of Marvel books each month in print. And as most of you probably know, some of you may not, Marvel gives a code for a digital copy of each book with the print copy. So the new support tier that we have is called I Still Like Digital Comics, and you get the bonus episode from the $1 tier. This is a $2 tier. You get the bonus episode from the $1 tier, plus you get to pick from one of the Marvel books that I'm buying each month, and I will send you the digital code so that you can read along. If the book is published more than once in a month, or if there's an annual, you get those too. If you sign up to a book already in progress, like Savage Avengers, which I mentioned, or the current Daredevil run from Chip Zdarsky, which is excellent, I will send you everything that I have so far, which in the case of those two series is everything. If it was a book like Venom, it's quite a few of them. If it's Spider-Man Life Story, that's everything so far. If you want to read a limited like Spider-Man Life Story or the upcoming House of X or Powers of 10, those Jonathan Hickman X-Men stories, then you can pick those, and then when they're done, you can see if there's something else available and pick that. So this is a great opportunity for you guys to support us, but also get something really, really meaningful if you like reading comics, because you'd be able to read these books for a much lower price each month than you would pay if you had to buy the book yourself, particularly in the case of something like Life Story, which I think is a $5 an issue book. Consider supporting us and have the opportunity to maybe read something that you're not already reading for a substantial discount.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
So, Jay, where can folks find us on Patreon and beyond until the next episode of the podcast?
Well, before we do that, don't we enjoy something, Brian, that I just realized we haven't done yet this episode?
Yeah, I enjoy relieving myself. It's not that.
We like comics.
I like sponge cake.
Ooh, sponge cake is good. Sponge cake now. That's what we're rebranding ourselves as.
Sponge cake now. Yeah. No, but we hopefully like you, hopefully like the sort of person that would support us at $2 a month and read along with us. We still like comics.
We definitely still like comics, comic films, comic conventions, all sorts of comics websites. We just love running a website where we get to talk about comics,
reading comics while we relieve ourselves,
reading comics, and just interacting with fellow lovers of comics. You can find us, Comics Now, on the web at www.comics-now.com. Like Brian said, you can visit us on Patreon. Go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/comicsnow, where you can support the show so we can continue to do reviews and merchandise videos and commentaries and the podcast and all sorts of stuff. Anything you would want to hear from us, you could support us on Patreon at patreon.com/comicsnow. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, both at ComicsNowCast. Like us on Facebook, just search for Comics Now and leave us a rating and a review there. Find us on YouTube. We are the Comics Now that is not the lovely Belgian gentleman. You can email us at comicsnowcast@gmail.com. You can follow me personally on Twitter at JAYAWS. Rate and review us on iTunes. Real quick, we have gotten one new review in the past few months. It is an international review from Vintage GT from the UK. He says, "This is the stuff, 5 stars. Jay and Brian know their stuff when it comes to the nerdy stuff we all love. Want your fix of comic book podcastery? Look no further." Thank you, Vintage GT. If you're who I'm thinking of, his handle on Twitter is Jim Bob SquarePants, which makes me laugh every time I see it. So thank you very much, Vintage GT. Thanks just so much for listening and leaving us a review. But yes, rate and review us on iTunes. Give us a nice 5-star review and rating and review, and give us a nice thumbs up on Stitcher, and share us on any other podcasting platform of your choice, including Spotify. As always, I am Jay, and I am always joined by Brian, and this is Comics Now.